Hello everyone and welcome back to Zeepkist. In today's video we're going to be recreating my Sunset Pines art, which for this track we're going to be calling Sunset Evergreen because I already have a track named Sunset Pines, which this is kind of a remake of but not really. So here's the art that we're going to be recreating today, and it should be a mostly easy thing to do. And I already have a layout and skybox done because that's all the boring stuff that would get cut out anyways. So it's a pretty easy track, pretty standard and stuff. There's a few bits in here like the jump and this section right here that are a little tricky, but nothing too much. And a little jump at the end, which I am 100% guaranteeing that somebody is going to break at the top of this hill so that they can ride the hill down for more speed. I guarantee it. So the first step is going to be deciding the color palette for things. So I think most of the terrain is going to be this lighter green color, and then bushes and stuff will be this darker green. And the trees, this is not the tree we're using. They're going to be this black color with no shading. The pond at the bottom will be this color. But first we gotta decide on what the colors for the actual track itself is going to be. So I think a green border will look nice on this. There we go. And now to decide on what the actual track color will be. This color might look nice. Yeah, let's go with this. And I would like to actually change it for this section, because I would like this to be underground. And this will be a bridge, which we'll get back to later. Alright, now that we have all the track painted up, we can start working on the terrain. So I'm going to scale down this rock piece and then move it up just a little bit. And most of the terrain is going to be these rock pieces. We're going to do 0.5 on this and rotate it up a little bit and then move it up just a little. So that way we can have a hill that our cave goes under, which will help a lot in both having extra height on the track so that everything isn't just flat, but also so that we don't have to worry about the cave having too low of a ceiling. Because I don't particularly want the cave to feel claustrophobic. Then we can add in the entrance to the cave right around here. And then we can add in this side over here. So almost have the terrain work done around the cave area, and then we can start working on the inside of the cave. Alright, so I have most of the terrain work done around the area, but I would like to change the road color so it's more visible from the actual terrain and stuff. Alright, now it's much easier to see the road and stuff. Alright, now we have all the terrain, or most of the terrain done. All the stuff that's important around the cave. So now, we get to actually start making that cave. And it's mostly going to be the same process, but just making sure that nothing clips through the top here. So once I get this all finished up, then we can actually start doing decoration instead of just terrain work. And pretty much the main thing that I kind of want to keep with this is just making sure that the cave is mostly open and stuff. And something that I would like to do when we get to the decorating part of this is I would like to stop this inner wall right here. I don't think it's big enough that people can use it, but also I've been wrong with that a lot. Then we can add in this little section to the roof right around here. And then we can go ahead and add some rocks to the entrance. just so that it looks a little better. Alright, so now we have the terrain work done for the first part of the cave. So now it's on to all of this stuff now, which I'm not exactly excited for, but it is mostly going to be the same process. So I'm probably going to cut until either I start talking about something interesting or until this is mostly done. Hey, something that I can talk about while I'm working on this. Zeepkist Logic V2 comes out sometime this year. I don't know what the release day that's going to be, but it's going to come out and it's going to be amazing, and I'm probably going to make a tutorial video on it if I understand it good enough. So that's something everyone can look forward to. And in the wise words of the Mustache Man, it'll be really quite simple. Alright, and the cave is now done. So the only thing that I want to add now is going to be the only thing that I want to add now to it is going to be a little underwater, or not underwater, a aquifer area down here. So it's mostly just going to be rotating the same piece around until we get kind of a circle, which I've done in, I think, 2 of the videos now. And it's pretty much just the same process. Alright, there we go. And then we can take our water from earlier and throw it down here. And just fill this in. Around about there. And I would like a different color than pink down here, just so that it fits the tone down here a little better. I think that's about good. Something that I would like to make on this track for the cave is going to be a crystal, just to be reminiscent of the original track, which this isn't supposed to be a remake of, but it's based on essentially the same things, so it might as well be a little bit of a remake. And then just copy this and scale it up a little. I would like to put white on the inside, and then we can use one of these see-through colors like that. Yeah, that seems good. And we can copy up this whole thing, move it into our little lake area here. I would like to put a platform there. And this should be pretty good for the platform that this will sit on. And just shrink it down a bunch. And just take our crystal, shrink it down a teeny tiny little bit, and put it right there on the center. And make a few smaller ones around it. And there we go. Nice little bunch of crystals here. And we can even throw in a custom light. Turn down the brightness on this a little bit. And change the color to a nice purple. Now the real question, do I want volumetrics on this? I think yeah. There we go. And we might as well, since we already have the models for these crystals made, we might as well throw some crystals around the rest of the cave as well. But I would like to change the color of this to orange, just so it fits our sunset theming a little more. Also, speaking of crystal caves and stuff like that, I made some art on stream recently of a crystal cave, and I might end up making that into a track next month. So that's something for everyone to look forward to. Then we can put some crystals up here in the ceiling. Actually, we'll move this out to be the front side, so that it can be visible by the player when they're driving. Even though I'm pretty sure the player's camera will be angled too far into the ground to ever see any of these. There we go. That looks nice. And then also we can go ahead and throw in some stalactites and stalagmites in the form of these icicles, because they work very well for that kind of thing. And then flip this one upside down, and we can have it connect to the ground. And the main kind of thing that I want to be going for this track is just kind of a cozy feeling. Mainly to make up for what I made in the Map Like a CSC competition. So that was very much not cozy style map, and also just wasn't even my kind of map. Also, if you're confused as to what I'm talking about, that's a good thing. That map will never see the light of day on this channel. And finally, throw in just a few stalactites around in here. There we go. This all looks nice now. So then now, I get to continue doing the terrain work. And I think the first thing that needs to be done is make these two bits of floating track pieces no longer floating. And just make this part look like it's attached to a kind of hillside. Alright, now that we have the front side of this hill done, now we can start doing the back side. And I love doing the back side of builds and stuff. I'm very much like Grian. I will make the front, and that's good enough. Sometime soon after I do, I think it was 1 or 2 more games that I have planned to make videos on, I'm going to start looking into some viewer suggestion games. So if you have any games that you'd like to see me play, please put them over on the Discord server, and I might play it. No guarantees. One game that I'm very excited to play, I'm not sure if I'm going to do a stream on it or not, but I'm very excited to make a video on Far Away, which is a very, very underrated puzzle game, but it's very good. And it's a huge inspiration for my art style, and has even inspired the design of 2 of my Zeepkist tracks now. Also, I'm not sure if I've said this in a video or not, I probably have. 2 games that I am really excited to play if I can figure out how to get them set up are Pitfall, The Lost Expedition, or Big Adventure. Probably Big Adventure because it has better graphics. And also Endless Ocean Blue World. But I'm not entirely sure how to get those 2 games set up for a video or stream. I might. I'm honestly not sure if I'm going to stream those games. I would like to, but there are some portions, especially in Pitfall, where I feel like I could get stuck for a while on something, which wouldn't be the most entertaining, I don't feel like. But anyways, that's something to look forward to in the future, if I can ever figure that out. And getting close to being finished with the terrain work, which I'm very excited for, because then it means that we can actually start doing decoration on all this. Alright, now we have our lake in. It's not quite as big as I'd like it to be, so I'm going to fix that real quick. Okay, now I have all the terrain work done, so now it's time to actually start decorating things, yay! So the first thing that I would like to do is take Pine Tree that I made during the Vanilla Twilight remake and make it all black. And we can copy this and move it on down to here. And we can start putting these around the place. And I'd like to keep from the start this view of the sun. So pretty much just placing down these trees and trying to make them feel somewhat spread out. These trees are quite a few parts. It's 22 parts per tree, and there's kind of a hard limit on levels of about 4,000 blocks. Once you exceed 4,000 blocks, levels start getting very laggy. It does depend on the blocks and how spread out they are, but it's kind of just a general rule. And something to remember to do that I haven't been doing with these for a little bit now is to make sure to rotate them. because even though they're kind of just these weird, like, blobby tree things, our eyes can still kind of see that it is the same tree a bunch of times. So very important to remember to rotate these. Alright, now we have all of our trees added in. This is kind of the limit of trees that I want. We're already up to 1,200 parts, which is not great, but I think I can kind of cheat for some more distance trees by having the single part pine trees. I can put these in farther so it still looks like there is more forest and stuff, even though these are the lower quality trees. They're so out of the way of the normal track that generally most people won't even see these. There we go now. So then I can remove that, and now it's on to the bushes. So I want a relatively round rock. There we go. That's perfect. And then one next to it, flip it upside down, and stretch it out a bunch. Rotate this one around, and just make this kind of resemble the bush in my drawing. There we go, that looks nice. Then we can paint this up with our darker green color, and then copy this, shrink it down a ton because that is huge. Then we can put this around the track. And we're just kind of placing these around somewhat like how we place the trees, but more sparse. Because we want these pine trees to be more so the focus than the bushes. There we go. This seems like a good amount of these bushes. And then the next thing that I want to make is the super big spiky bushes, which I think we can achieve with these cone pieces. And this one won't look exactly like the artwork, just because of how it doesn't really translate super well into 3D with the parts we have. There we go. That seems about good. Then we can just paint up all this, take it, and throw this around the place. And absolutely make sure to rotate these. And then just do pretty much the same thing that we did for the bushes, but with these. Now this is looking really, really good. Something that I would like to do with this one is, what piece would work best for this? Probably this, actually. Then flatten it down a ton, try and get like a bushy kind of oval shape. There we go. And then we can just fill in the rest of this using some other rocks, and then paint it all up with this black color. There we go. I would like to add in a kind of face on this. It is mainly just 2 eyes. But just a little critter that's inside of this bush. There we go. That looks great. Very much exactly how I wanted it to look. And we can just throw this in right at the end. That looks great. And there's just a few more things I would like to add before I finish up this video. It has been going on for a while. I'd like to put some guardrails on this bridge, just so that it's more obviously meant to be a bridge. Grab the sausage block, which is one of my favorite decoration pieces. It is a terrible track piece though, never used as a track piece. And I'll be right back when I have all the sausage pieces in. Alright, now we have all of our sausage pieces in, and now we can paint up the supports on this bridge. There we go. And then the next thing that I would like to do is add in a parking block over here. And then we can add in some of these support pillars, and then lower the entire dock down a little bit. There we go. Yeah, of course on this dock is going to be a box meow fishing, because at this point that's pretty much mandatory. This has kind of just become a staple of these videos now. There has to be at least one box meow fishing. It's even in the art this time. The final thing that I would like to add is a tent and some box mouse camping. So I think for the tent itself, it should be pretty easy. I think take one of these road pieces, angle it like this, remove that part, add a pivot block to the middle of this, and then we can take a sausage piece, shrink it down a little, move it on over, and into here. And then for the front and back side of this, I'd like to take one of these semi-cylinders and scale it a little weirdly, and we can move this on up. Final major thing before we can mirror this is we need some tent spikes in the ground. And then now we can paint up the tent. Copy it over, and with the amazingness that is the Blueprints X mod, we have the whole thing mirrored now. And then on the inside of here, I'd like to make a sleeping bag. This should be a pretty simple thing to make. So we need to squish it down, make it not longer, wider, and there's our sleeping bag. And then we need a little pillow. There we go. So now that we have our tent, we can move it back over to here and rotate a little. And then I would also like to throw in a sleeping box mount inside of our tent. There we go. And the final thing that I'd like to add is a few logs around a campfire. There we go. Now we have a very angry box mouse. Still not sure what he's angry about though. You all get to decide that in the comments. And then, because I apparently don't have the blueprint of this saved, we get to recreate the box mouse with the marshmallows on a stick. That's very fitting. And then we grab our stick, very pointy stick. There we go. And we need to make a marshmallow to put on this. There we go. Then we can put this on the stick. And then we get to show different levels of it being charred, just like in the original. So farthest one away, it's not cooked at all. One closest to the fire is very burnt. One second closest is a little cooked. And that one is like perfectly done. And there we go. Oh, we need to paint these logs to be like a normal log color. There we go. And then the final thing to add to this is a small box meow right at the start of the level that will be holding the start light. There we go. Now let's see how the track feels. Okay. Jump feels good. Crystals look very good in here. Love that purple crystal. Very happy that I added it to reference the original Sunset Pines track. I love the fishing box meow over there. And finally coming in for the finish. I feel like we did a pretty good job on this track. Also, wanted to shout out Mortarshade for helping with the clouds. But anyways, I think that's going to be the end of today's episode. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!